Hey, Montreal Canadians fans, Hi Canadian Belmont here. I'm going to be looking back at the draft. I know the draft was last week. I was really sick. Tried to do it, couldn't do it, but have to go back and look at it. So the draft was pretty memorial for who they picked and the fact that Carey Price totally screwed up when renouncing the guy's name. Before the draft, they made a big deal. The Canadians acquired Alex Newhook from Colorado in exchange for draft picks and Gianna Fairbrother. I can't say that I was totally enthusiastic about this pick because we got Alex Newhook, who's not had a bad career. He's on a very deep Colorado team right now, so he's fighting for playing time on the third, fourth line type idea. But we gave up a 31st pick and the 37th pick in this week's draft in defenseman Gianni Fairbrother. So we got rid of one of our defensemen in the minors, in Laval, to draft another defenseman. Okay. 31st and 37th pick. We could have got more bang for our buck in that one. Newhook remains to be seen. Will he become another Jonathan Drouin, who was a complete bust in Montreal? Or will he pan out? Hopefully he pans out. What it tells me, you're willing to give up the 31st and 37th pick in this year's draft for a player. That tells me that it's not a very deep draft as far as talent goes, and they didn't think they were going to get anyone in 31st and 37th pick that would help them. Personally, I would have taken that 31st and 37th pick, package it up with our 5th round pick, and try and move up to get Fantilli. That would have made more sense to me. So who did we take in the first round? We took this guy from Austria, David Reinbacher, defenseman from Austria. The highest Austrian drafted since Thomas Vanek, I believe. And he was the first defenseman off the board in this year's draft. I know his draft stock went up in the last 2 weeks. He wasn't originally the number one defenseman until recently. Now he scored 3 goals and added 19 assists in 46 games in the Swiss National League, which doesn't really impress me that much. Gotta remember, European teams don't play as many games as do North American teams, like the AHL, the NHL. Even our Canadian Hockey League plays more games. He did appear in 2 World Junior Championships, but he's playing for Austria. Austria is not exactly a powerhouse. 6'2", he's got some decent size. 185 pounds, needs to put some muscle on his frame. My projection, will he play right now for Montreal next year? No, he'll be in Laval. A year in Laval will do him good. Slavakovsky should have spent a year in Laval. But because you're a number 1 pick, you're expected to make the NHL right away. Doesn't always work like that. People wanted to draft that Russian guy. I wouldn't draft any Russians per se, just on purely political reasons. And the fact you might not get an 18-year-old Russian right away. Unless they're already playing in North America. So my expectations is he's going to come to camp. He'll be at training camp and he'll get sent to Laval. I think Montreal should have went for a scorer because we really need goal scoring. Montreal has had problems getting pucks in the net ever since their last Stanley Cup. The most consistent guy was Pacioretty, and I think he only hit 40 goals once. And you look back in the last 5 drafts, we have Logan Molloy from the London Knights. He'll be coming up this year. Whether he can make the jump from the OHL to the NHL, he'll probably be in Laval. Caden Gooley has been a great asset for us when he stays healthy. There's 2 defensemen as our number 1 draft picks. Reinbacher makes a 3rd number 1 defenseman. Plus they have Philip Massar. He was a number 1 pick last year at 26. So again, Owen Beck made an appearance last year. So we'll see. So already there's been a lot of backlash against Reinbacher. Carey Price butchered his name. Fans wanted the Russian scorer. Time will tell. So with the round 3, so after giving up our 2nd round pick in the draft for Newhook, we then got round 3. We had to wait. Pick 69, and we got goalie Jacob Fowler from Youngston Phantoms United States Hockey League. This guy had a pretty good year. He's had a pretty good career with Youngston. But that's the USHL. That's not the Canadian Hockey League. There's a big difference between the 2 leagues. Also, he's committed to Boston College next year, which means we're not going to see him. He might go to training camp. I think he gets invited to training camp, but that's it. Then he gets sent to Boston College. So it'll be 2-3 years before we see him. They're looking for Carey Price's replacement. They have Sam Montembeault, who had a pretty good year, and Jake Allen, who had a brutal year. And then we have Caden Primo, who is yet to who's played 21 games but hasn't really shown a lot yet. But there's always hope. And then we have Emmett Croteau from Waterloo in the USHL. So, but Fowler wasn't the only goalie we got. Then with our fourth pick at 101, we took Florian Zizek. I can never pronounce that name. I know his brother plays for us, and his brother had a great year considering he was an undrafted free agent. So hopefully this guy stands out. He had 25 points in 68 games, stands 6'2", and in 6 postseason games he netted 1 goal, adding a pair of helpers. He'll go back to the OHL next year because he's only played 1 year there, and hopefully he can continue to develop. Next up, we got another defenseman, Bogdan Konishkov, Torpedo Nizhny Novgorod. 5'11", 176, 25 points in 64 games in Russia's top flight. So he has played some top hockey, but I don't see him coming over to Canada this year. He'll probably stay in the KHL. He might come to training camp. I'm not a big fan of him fighting any Russians right now, thanks to Putin, but what can you do? Then in round 4, 128, we took Quentin Miller, goalie of the Quebec Remparts. Played only 18 games with a .211 average. Played for the Montreal Cup champions, so he wasn't the number 1 goalie, obviously. First year in the queue, he'll go back to the queue. He'll be a returning player. All right, going into round 5, we have Sam Harris, left wing, Sioux City Stampede, United States Hockey League. Montreal loves these United States Hockey League guys for some reason. We take a lot of them. He had a career-high 56 points in 56 games with the Stampede. And he represented USA at the World Juniors A Challenge, where he registered 2 goals in 6 games. He's going to suit up for the Pioneers at the University of Denver. So another guy we're not going to get right away. Yeah, he's got 2 years with the Stampede. He's improved. Needs to improve his plus-minus, his defensive skills. But he's going to college. We're not going to see him. Next up, we got a goalie with a round 5, pick 144. Evgeny Volokin, goalie from Canty Mencius Jr. He's our 3rd goalie, so we took 3 goalies. We're looking for goalies. Looking for diamonds in the rough right now. 6'3" shot stopper, displayed a 26-3 record in 31 contests. He's got a pretty good goals against average and save percentage. Well, he's only playing junior, though. I can't see him leaving Russia for Canada. We won't see him. Might go to training camp. That's it. Not someone we're going to see anytime soon. That's why I don't like taking certain European players or college kids, because you don't see them for a few years. Next up, round 6, pick 165. Philip Eriksson, center for the Vaho Lakers. A centerman, didn't play in the regular league. In the junior league, he had 5 goals, 5 assists, and 10 points in 11 games. But he played 2 games up in the majors, the Swedish Hockey League, and didn't really do much. So I expect him to go back. Either they'll bring him over to the OHL or Q, or they'll keep him in Sweden and see what happens. But he's not going to be any help this year. When a team needs immediate help, you want to draft guys who are ready. But I know that's hard in the late rounds, and that the draft is development. So I do understand that. And then last we got Luke Mittelstadt, defenseman, University of Minnesota. His brother plays for Buffalo. 21 points in 38 games. Represented USA at the 2023 World Junior Championships, where he registered 3 assists in 7 outings and route to a bronze medal. This guy is already 20 years old, so he wasn't drafted after the 2022 season. I'm kind of surprised. He's gotten better as time goes on. He's probably won't see him until another 2 years. He'll spend 2 more years in Minnesota before coming up. So there's a lot of... I don't see any really big prospects coming up. A lot of maybes and question marks. I would say our 2022 draft had more upside with Owen Beck, Massar, Stavkovsky, even Lane Hudson. There's definitely more upside in this group than there was in this group. So I'm kind of disappointed in the draft. But it's one of those wait and sees. I would have packaged a deal to move up in the draft and try and get Fantilli. Fantilli dropped to 3. How hard could that have been? So right after the draft during free agency, Montreal traded defenseman Joel Edmondson to the Washington Capitals for a 3rd and 7th round pick in 2024. Nothing wrong with that. Montreal has to retain 50% of his salary, though. That kind of sucks. But Montreal will create space to get somebody. Edmondson, 2 goals, 11 assists in 61 games last season, is 3rd with the Canadians. He's under contract for $3.5 million, which means Montreal keeps 1.75, whatever the hell it is. The problem with him was he was hurt a lot, especially in the last 2 years. He was hurt quite a bit. And he only played 24 games in 2021-22 and then 61 last year and 55 the year before. So he's not exactly the healthiest guy in the world, but he's a big guy, and it's too bad we're going to miss him. But we have young defensemen in the pipeline that are coming up. So getting some draft picks for him is a great thing. Forward Alex Belsilli is also heading to a new home. He signed a 2-year contract with the New York Rangers. He had 6 goals, 8 assists in 31 games with the Canadians last year. To me, that's not really a big deal. Basili, he was a role player that filled in when we had guys that were hurt. Not like Harvey Pernard, who played great for us last year. Basili's never really could crack the lineup. Spent most of his time in the minors with a bunch of teams. And his entire career, my NHL career, has been with Montreal, and his best year was last year. So I don't really consider that a huge loss. But then Montreal signed forward Philip Millette and defenseman Brady Keeper to 2-way contracts. These guys are just going to the AHL. They're lucky they'll get called up. The other big news out of Montreal is that Jonathan Drouin finally got out of Montreal and signed a 1-year deal with the Avalanche. Drouin was a bust. Remember, we traded him to the Tampa Bay Lightning with a conditional round 6 pick in 2018 to Montreal for Mikhail Sergachev and a conditional round 2 in the 2018 draft. That was a huge mistake. Sergachev has won 2 Stanley Cups with the Tampa Bay Lightning and has been a great defenseman for them. Drouin we were hoping to get a goal scorer, and instead we got somebody who was a physical and mental wreck. His best season was 18 goals, 35 assists for 53 points in 81 games. Other than that, he's continually slid down. Last year he only had 2 goals in 58 games. Can't play defense. In the playoffs during the Stanley Cup run, he left the team. So he was just a complete bust. Not worth it. And it's too bad because he had a lot of upside coming into the league. He's going to be reunited with his buddy in Colorado, McKinnon. But you wonder how much of it was McKinnon helping him. So that's going to save us a ton of money in Montreal as far as that goes, salary-wise. It really is too bad for Drouin. I had high hopes for him when he first came to Montreal, but lately, the last couple of years, I wanted to trade him. Get rid of him. He wasn't worth it. So there we have it. That's what's going on in Montreal right now. Nothing really good, except for they're saving cap space. I'm hoping that the Montreal can get healthy, because they had a lot of injuries last year. And that their rookies from the previous 5 seasons that are in the pipeline can come up and start playing the younger guys. But we'll see. Anyway, Montreal fans out there, let me know what you guys think about the draft and free agency. Leave comments in the comment section, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Until next time, I am Hockey Night in Belmont. I am out of here.